Greetings again, everyone, and welcome to another edition of OSI Today, the podcast featuring news and views from around the Office of Special Investigations. I'm Wayne Amon from OSI Public Affairs, and I'm pleased to be joined by the 16th Command Chief of OSI, Chief Master Sergeant Karen Beirne-Flint. Chief, as always, thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Thank you so much, sir, for inviting me. I'm excited to be here.
Now, about being excited to be here, this is an exciting time to be in OSI as well, and it's an unusual time, obviously, with COVID-19, the pandemic taking root everywhere, it seems. But a couple of months ago in an email to the command, you wrote, as the command chief, resiliency does not happen by accident, that it takes work.
Yes,
now,
sir.
That said, how would you define resiliency during COVID-19?
So Wayne, it's a great question. Resiliency, the definition hasn't changed. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, resiliency is our ability to respond or cope to stress, or our capability to recover.
Yeah.
It is not about how much we can handle it, but the tools that we have in our tool bags to be able to deal with whatever is coming our way, whether it's bad stress or good stress. And of course, the Air Force defines resiliency in our 4 pillars. So we have spiritual, physical, mental, and social. And those
Right.
are the areas that we need to ensure that we have strength in order to manage whatever happens. What is different now is not necessarily our resiliency, but how we cope to what's happening around us. And
Right.
the ways that we do that have changed. Because
Oh,
a
yeah.
lot of times if we're stressed out, we go talk to people. Well, at early onset of this, we couldn't see the people that we may need to talk to.
Right,
Our
right,
counselors,
right.
our pastors.
Sure.
I mean, we have our family, but even our coworkers, we were separated. So
Yeah,
we had to
yeah.
find new ways to build those resiliency tools that we were so used
To
to
overcome
having.
those distances, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily defining it differently. It's just how we've coped with it differently. And I think we've done a great job at figuring out better ways to do business under this new environment.
Right. Now, in your travels throughout the command chief, what are some of the specific examples of resiliency that have really impressed you? And I know that there are a litany, but I know that you have a handful there.
Oh yes, sir. There's so many. I have to tell you, Wayne. Early on, I was making phone calls. It took me about 2 months, and I called just about every superintendent and enlisted SAC we had, even our civilian SACs in OSI,
Right, right.
and wanted to know how they were doing. And the things that our agents are doing, are things that our airmen, are doing, just brought tears to my eyes.
Really?
So, for example, like one situation where a SAC learned that one of his airmen was having a specific issue, and so he brought it back to the entire team, and as a family, they worked through these issues together, and that's something
Yeah.
that maybe would not have happened before,
Yeah.
because we would have just dealt with it the way we've always dealt with it. But because this individual is isolated, they reached out to their special agent in charge, and the special agent in charge brought it to the OSI family, and they worked
Yeah.
through it as a team.
Wow.
Another example that I had was, and I was even a part of this, there was a myriad of fitness challenges going on.
Right.
Because one of the first things that got impacted is our ability to work out. Like our
Uh-huh.
gyms got closed, and and we weren't able
Right,
to do
right.
group PT anymore.
Right.
And so I was just astonished about how many different ways people can compete with each other in fitness. And that's not only one of our resiliency tools is our fitness level, but it's also with stress management, and it
Yeah,
keeps us healthy.
yeah.
I got sucked into the burpee challenge out of PACAF, which was a lot of fun, but
Yeah.
it was a lot of work. And there was
Sure.
push-up challenges and step challenges and mile challenges. I mean, I was just really impressed on how well, our agents came together to make sure that we were staying resiliency fit.
Right. And you probably had a good time.
Oh, it was, well, it was fun after.
Okay, there you go.
But I did a push-up challenge. That was a little bit easy, but the burpee challenge was pretty tough.
Right,
but
right.
it just kept folks were moving, and we're very competitive, and it kept us engaged.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of different ways that really supported our resiliency as human beings, and I don't know if people realize how impactful that actually was.
Oh, yeah, I bet.
And the last example I'll share with you is recently after the George Floyd,
Right.
these critical conversations. I triggered a few myself, but
Sure.
then after my conversations of, let's talk, I'll listen, the regions and the directorates and the center, they just took off on their
Really?
own. And some of the conversations that they're having, are leading to more trusting environments,
Yeah.
more open environments, and they're bringing things up that we may never had the courage to talk about before.
Sure.
And that, of course, it's under this COVID. I mean, it's just new ways of doing business and dealing with problem sets that we might not have had to deal with before if it wasn't for the pandemic.
Right.
So.
One thing I found pretty impressive, Chief, and I'm sure you did too, was during this challenging time, they find ways around things, new workarounds, but there was no degradation in the efficiency of doing their mission.
No,
the
not
mission
at all.
was still way up there.
Absolutely. And I even had that conversation with one of our superintendents. They said, Chief, there's no handbook for this.
Right.
And I'm like, well, thank God, because if there was a handbook for how to deal with this COVID, then we would have just looked it up in the book and done whatever the book told us to do.
Yeah.
But the fact is, there isn't a handbook, and our agents figured out how to get it done, and they went above and beyond and knocked it out of the park, and the not only utilizing, like whoever thought of a virtual, scavenger hunt, like whoever thought to do that, right? or happy hours, on Zoom with the units, doing things, how to go after our investigative mission set, or how to do surveillance training. We've really taken it up a notch above what we would have ever done before. And so I think the fact is that we have the best and brightest airmen the Air Force or our country has to give. And these guys, there is nothing we can give them any challenge. They're going to get over it. They're going to figure out a way to get the mission done, no matter what.
Yeah.
They don't need us either. We just kind of stand in their way half the time. So I'm glad that we
let them do their thing.
Yes, if we gave them a handbook, that would have been a limitation. But the fact is, they just figured it out, and now they're telling us a better way of doing business.
Sure.
So there's so many lessons learned that we're coming out of this, and it's not coming from the top. It's coming from the field on what we should be doing, how to do things better, how to connect with each other better.
Right.
And so we have amazing airmen.
Very, very cool. Now, Chief, in August of 2019, well before COVID-19 became the quote-unquote new normal, OSI established Operation Developing R300, or DO300 for short, to ultimately change the culture of the command to a more connected, communicative, and trusted family. What's the significance of the title DO300 for our new listeners? That may be a new phrase for them.
That's a great question. This is something near and dear to my heart. So DO300 is our resiliency platform that we talk about. It's really aligned with our line of effort number one, which is developing an exceptional force. And this is the heart of developing an exceptional force. But developing our 300, where we got that from is, well, if you're familiar with 300, which are the Spartan warriors, which were in Greece around 400 BC. Back then, the Spartan warriors were the most fearless warriors in the land. Their enemies were terrified of them, and their people absolutely adored them. They were revered by all. They were the most elite fighting force. I was reading one research paper, and it actually claimed that this was the first fighting force to recognize spycraft and infiltration, which I found to be very interesting. So there are a lot of similarities. There's a lot of dissimilarities between us and the Spartan 300. But some of the things that I really appreciated about that, I picked out. So, for example, with the Spartan 300, when they went to war, if those soldiers showed up, they would have their helmet, they would have their breastplates, they would have their sword, and they would have their shield. But if they showed up without their helmet, not a big deal. They're all going to war. If they showed up without their spear, okay, it sucks for you. We're still going to war. But if they showed up without that shield, now there was a problem, because now they let the team down. Because the helmet protects the individual. The sword protects the individual. But that shield protects the family. Because when they get in trouble, it's not only used for self-protection, but they hold it up over their head and they create a barrier. So when the bows and arrows are coming down at them, they're protecting the entire family. And that is the most important piece of equipment. And that shield was carried down from generation to generation. It was one of the most important things in those families. And of course, once a Spartan warrior, always a Spartan warrior. And so once an OSI, whether you're a 7S or not, right? Once you're in an OSI family, you're always an OSI family. And so that shield represented the commitment they had to one another. And so that became very powerful in understanding that DO300 is about a commitment to each other, a commitment to ourselves, and a commitment to each other. And where did we get the DO300 from? Well, I didn't make up the 300. I mean, when I did the research, it was fascinating how much that I wanted to take from that. General Goldfein, who was the chief of staff, or number 22 chief of staff.
Right.
While he was the CFAC, until his retirement, he called his OSI his 300, because while we were in the Middle East, the things that we did, because we are small, because we are elite, and he was able to give us any challenge, and we always overcame it, because
okay.
the Spartans were known for defeating much bigger adversaries than their own, because they were so well trained and they're so tactical that it didn't matter who they're up against. And so he called us his 300, and he would always refer to us, how's my 300 doing?
Right.
And that became like a badge of honor for us. So understanding that that's the way our chief of staff looked at us,
right.
Well, I might as well develop them further. So that's where you got the DO 300.
The story behind the story.
That's the story behind the story.
There you go. Chief, now it's about a year or so later. What's the status of the program as it relates to resiliency in COVID-19?
So, it started out, it's been a little bit over a year since the general, started. We started the DO 300, and it started because General Goldfein we had the resiliency stand down. We needed to take a look. He wanted his Air Force to take a look at how we can better support our airmen and prevent suicide.
Right.
And when the general and I sat down and started thinking through, we realized that one day out of the year is not going to ever prevent suicide. And I learned, I did a lot of, when I first came in OSI, I was part of the protective service detail at Bowling Air Force Base.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I never forget out of driving training, when I went through the driver's training course, one of the instructors said, whatever you're looking at, you're going to hit. When you're driving, that's why a lot of times people are staring at a tree, they're going to hit the tree.
Yeah.
If you're staring at the bumper in front of you, you're going to hit the bumper.
Because they're so focused on it?
Because that's what you're focused on.
Yeah.
And so what I learned from that is you need to look where you want to be. Don't look where you don't want to go.
Right.
And that's the way life is too.
Okay.
When we look to something, if it's a negative, we're going to go to the negative. But if we look to where we want to be, the state that we want to be in, that's where we're going to go.
Right.
And so I don't want to look at suicide, because I don't want to go there. I want to look at a healthy, vibrant, resilient, lethal force that is not afraid to reach out for help when they need it, that feels trusted and safe in the environments they work in. And so that's where we really want to go with this. And so we recognize that one day a month isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
Well, one day a year is not going to be enough.
Sure.
Maybe one
Sure.
day a month, maybe. But this needs to be a culture.
Yeah.
And since last year, since COVID actually, this has become more of an ethos for us.
Okay.
While we still have a day that one day a month that we can focus on the OSI family members, that we can focus on what is going on interpersonally and what do we need to be healthy and safe in our detachments and our flights. This has become an everyday occurrence of what am I doing today to make sure that I'm healthy and that the airmen standing to my left and to my right are healthy. What are we doing to ensure that we're getting the help that we need?
Right.
It's an expectation that we can ask for help, because this job has a lot of misery, and there is no expectation that we handle it by ourselves.
Sure.
And that we are building these environments of trust and respect and open communication. And in order to do that, we need the DO 300 to cultivate these relationships and have hard conversations. So in the event that I need to take a knee, or I need to talk about something that's really stressing me out, I feel I'm in a safe enough environment to do that. And that's where I think we're coming. We have a lot more work to do in this area. This is a culture shift, but I think from a year ago, and I think COVID really sped things along, and of course our critical conversations after the death of George Floyd, I think we have come a long way, and we've really started to build that connective tissue with trust and respect and open communication in our work centers.
Very good. Now, Chief, when talking about resiliency, and you just mentioned it, the word connection seems to go hand in hand. What type of connection are we talking about, and how important it is for the resiliency of OSI as an organization?
So there's a few different ways that we need to connect to be healthy, to find joy, to be resilient. The first is we really need to be able to connect with ourselves and understand, what do we need? What is our bodies asking for? What is our minds asking for?
Right.
And so that is a very important connection. That's why our people are our weapon system. And in order for us to stay lethal, my weapon system needs to stay healthy, and they need to understand what's important to themselves. What is their priorities?
Right.
And so connection to themselves is very important. Of course, connection with their family members. because this job can carry you away. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
it can take
yeah.
you, and if you don't control the job, this job will control you in a second.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to make sure you have strong connections with your family, because that is like your foundation, whether
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
significant others, moms and dads and brothers and sisters, girlfriends and boyfriends, whoever it is, that connection is extremely important.
Yeah.
And then finally, because you have your biological family, your loved ones back at home,
Right.
but then you have your OSI family.
Yeah. Your extended family.
Your extended family, right? And those connections are vitally important,
Right.
because that's how we're going to create. Just like at home, you want to have that safe environment. Well, we need to be safe at work, because of the negativity and the things that we see and do every single day. The only way to go back at that negative is to bring more positive.
Sure.
And so those relationships at work need to be healthy, need to be a safe place that we can work and live, because we're there more than half of our day.
Yeah.
And those connections are
Yeah.
just as important than the other two types of connections.
Sure. Makes a heck of a lot of sense. Chief, in your very first commentary to the command, you wrote, and I'll quote here, "Everything we do in OSI touches someone's life," unquote. How has that taken on an added importance during the pandemic?
So what I was referring to is the gravity of the work that we do. And it doesn't matter if you are, administrator, a personnelist, an agent, a cyber guy, an analyst, wherever you are in the Air Force, everything that we're doing is going to touch someone else's life. We're either protecting someone,
Right.
or we are going to be putting someone behind bars,
Right.
or targeting someone. I mean, so there's a lot of responsibility there.
Sure.
Under COVID, especially when we were, and even to this day, because in onset we were very much isolated, locked down to our homes, we couldn't go
Yeah,
anywhere.
yeah.
And so not only were we still working, because we're all now working, teleworking,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
now we're also having our kids at home and our spouses are home. And even to this day, we're
So
now
many things added to the mix.
so many things, right?
Yeah.
And so now we have a lot of homeschooling going on.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of parents that are trying to homeschool their children, and then of course fit in their mission.
Yeah, yeah.
And how is that working? And that is exceptionally stressful. So there's an impact there as well. I mean, because again, everything that we do touches someone.
Right.
It has an impact on someone, and then sometimes that someone is our families.
Right,
And so we need to
right.
be aware of that, and not that the mission has to stop. Because I'm going to tell you, our adversaries are looking to bring us down. Our
Yeah.
adversaries want us to fail. They want this country to fail, and we are the first line to that.
Even though this is a worldwide pandemic, I mean, it's, they're looking at stuff like this.
Yes, they want to take advantage, and they're looking for the weak spots, and we can't allow that to happen. And so I need to keep the weapon system strong. And so we have to be in tune with what's going on around us, and understand that, yes, what we do is vitally important, but we need to be able to take care of ourselves and our families in
Yeah.
order to allow us to have the strength to go forward and do those things.
Yeah, very good. Chief, how do you see the organizational values of having a hunter's mindset, trust, and taking calculated risks, helping OSI folks focus on resiliency during this extremely challenging time?
So, this is important because it's all intertwined, Wayne. Everything is intertwined. So
Yeah.
hunting is something that's like one of our little, one of the things at OSI, we've been saying it for years,
Right,
right? We
right.
have to have a hunter's mindset. And
Right.
for agents, that means we're going to go after and catch bad guys.
Yeah.
But for others, it could mean the same thing, or it can mean being proactive, going after and finding problems, and then being, really proactive in finding solutions, and
Right,
going
right.
after things without being told what to do. It's,
Mhm.
about being assertive and
Yeah.
and not just status quo. But hunting is dangerous, right? Even if you think of it as hunting animals, or hunting, like the hunter is in a very vulnerable position.
Yeah.
Because they're putting a lot of trust into certain things, whether it's their equipment
Mhm.
or another person,
Yeah.
right? So hunting is very risky.
There's
And-
always an element of uncertainty there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're going to put yourself out there, and what's going to happen? And that's where the risk taking comes in, because when you're going to go hunt, you have to be willing to take risk.
Mhm.
If you're going to play it safe, you're probably not going to be very
Right.
successful
Right.
at hunting. And so they kind of go hand in hand. And so if you want me to go out there and hunt for something, and that means I'm going to have to take a risk, because I'm going to have to I want to either come up with an idea that may never have been done before,
Right.
or I'm going to maybe voice my opinion on something
Sure.
because I believe this process doesn't work correctly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it may not be a popular opinion.
Right.
If I'm going to put myself out there, that means I am now vulnerable for failure, for rejection, to be told, shut up and color.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and so if I don't trust my environment, I am not going to put myself out there. I'm not going to take the risk, and I'm not going to be as successful hunting because I don't trust my environment.
Right.
And so DO300 is, again, at the foundation of building
Sure.
this trust and respect, because when I know that my boss has my back, I am absolutely willing to go out there and do whatever I need to do to be successful. When I know as a supervisor, as the superintendent, as a detachment commander, as a flight chief, as a commander, that my people understand the left and right boundaries, that they know what the mission is, and they have really good vision, I'm going to trust that they've got the best interest in mind and they're going to go after it. And if they don't get it right, I'm good with that, because we fail forward.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so that's really, when it comes, bases on resiliency, because you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, it's the same, again, it's that foundation of trust is the same, the same foundation. I don't want to
Yeah.
keep repeat
Right.
my words.
No,
but,
that's fine. But that's what it is.
yeah,
That's what it is.
It's the foundation,
Yeah.
and then everything is built upon that. And
Yeah.
so, I think that the focus of having the hunter's mindset, trusting and taking risk, and I think we've allowed them to do that because of the things that they have done during COVID.
Right.
Is phenomenal. So.
It is. It is. Chief, when COVID-19 is finally behind us in our rearview mirrors, hopefully that'll be sooner instead of later, what lessons do you envision the OSI family learning from the new normal? Hopefully that'll be the old normal after a while.
So there are so many lessons, and the one thing, and I did bring it up earlier, is as our airmen went out and came up with better ways of doing business and how to get the mission done. When they said, and I've gotten this question when I've been talking to the field, they've asked me, well, Chief, what's going to change after COVID? And what are the lessons learned? And so my question to them is, you tell me, what are the lessons that I've learned? Because you tell me what's working better. Tell me
Right.
what you're doing now that you've never done before that's very impactful.
Sure.
What are you not doing anymore that maybe we don't need to be doing ever again, because we haven't done it in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
And so what we're doing now is collecting all of the feedback from the field, and we've got over 600 items that the field has given to
Wow.
us in our new L2 shop. Yeah, that we're working through it all, trying to figure out, okay, we've gotten all this feedback, all these lessons learned, how to organize it and put it in, and make changes.
Chief, when you say an L2 shop, again, for someone
Lessons
new,
learned.
Lessons learned shop.
Yes,
Okay, there we
sir.
go.
And so, but what I can tell you is that off the top, we learned how to connect with one another in ways that we've never learned before.
Oh, yeah?
We have never, as a command, come together globally in one platform, ever. Now, Facebook, the general and I have done some Facebook Live events, and that's great, but that tends to be one-way communication.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can
Yeah.
type in your messages,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah.
just us talking to you.
Right.
But with the Zoom platforms and the Teams platforms, and some of these other different platforms, we are now able to connect with everybody in the world, all OSI globally at one time, and have conversations. We've
Yeah.
never been able to do that before. We have learned that we can overcome pretty much anything life throws at us, without a doubt.
That's a pretty good position to be in.
Yeah, and whatever it is, you give it to OSI, and we're going to overcome it. We're going to figure a way to do it and get it done. And finally, I think we learned that we're agile. We are
Yeah.
a force that can change on a dime, and we're small and we're mighty, and we have earned every second of that 300 that General Goldfein gave us long ago when he saw us working in the Middle East, because every no matter where you are in the world, we can turn on a dime and we can get the mission done, and you're going to have the best and brightest airmen doing it. So.
And that's a tremendous way to end this podcast on a very, very positive, upbeat note, as a command chief would.
Yes, sir.
Our guest has been Office of Special Investigations Command Chief, Chief Master Sergeant Karen Beirne-Flint. Chief, as always, thanks again for joining us today. Really appreciate you joining us.
I appreciate it.
And thank all of you for tuning in. For OSI Today, I'm Wayne Amon saying so long for now.